My name is Reinhard Six. I'm coming from the European Investment Bank. I'm working in the Project Directorate Energy Efficiency and Small-Scale Renewals, and I'm also in charge of coordinating the Elena facility. And that's why it's a pleasure today to chair or support the presentation of Paul from the Tipperary Energy Agency. The Elena facility, you might know, is a facility which supports project development. It's financed by the Commission, and the bank, the European Investment Bank, is managing on its behalf. And here we have an example how a local energy agency or regional energy agency uses this support in order to prepare investments. This is the major focus of the Elena facility, to really make the investments happen in the field. And this is quite a challenge in certain cases. And we have heard probably already some other presentations today also in the sector for financing the refurbishment of housing, which is a sector where the difficulties are quite high. The Commission has this idea, and I think also in other sectors, is it that it's helpful to have a kind of one-stop shop, an independent entity which could support the homeowners in the long journey from having the idea of refurbishing the house till through energy audits, contracting of contractors, evaluating the results, eventually also financing the investments. So this is a crucial sector where more activities are needed in order to make the refurbishment rate, the energy efficiency refurbishment rate happening today. And that's why I'm very glad that Paul is here with us, who can present us the Super Homes project. I always admire the English native speakers because they have so really fancy titles. I have always difficulties to imagine this. My fantasy is a little bit limited in this sense. But please, let's have a visit of your super home.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Reinhard. I suppose I should talk a little bit about the name that Reinhard has set it up so well. So I started, and my first kind of entry into this was a proposal to our National Energy Agency to do some finance support for a near zero energy retrofit pilot. And our marketing and communications person came over and said, "Have I taught you nothing?" So she came up with the title of Super Homes, and that's where Super Homes came from. It's because we need to try and engage people with what they're going to do. And someone asked in the last session about whether renewables should be part of an energy efficiency investment, and we very much believe very strongly that renewables should be part of the package, and you have to do renewables to get through Super Homes. You don't. It's not just energy efficiency; it has to be both. So I may not use that after all. So I suppose I'm going to talk a little bit about aligning the stars for deep renovation, and just a tiny bit about the Tipperary Energy Agency. We're a local energy agency. We have applied to the Elena facility, and 50% of it is in domestic housing. Then the other kind of main strands are commercial renewables, public lighting, and building renovation. I'm not talking about that other 50%. I'm really going to focus on the super homes today, because I think it's very similar to the other things, but it's nice and easy to understand. And I will say that I was inspired by our friends in Picardy, and I'll say that I've copied them in quite a few bits and pieces that we've done. So just a little bit about where we came from in terms of the journey into deeper retrofit. So we did this project funded again by the Commission called SERVE. It was a concerto project in 2008 to 2012. And that project was about what we did call deep renovation, but it was energy efficiency without renewables. And we got about a 45% retrofit. And as part of that retrofit, we did a lot of monitoring. And we understood at the end of that monitoring phase that if you didn't get the energy performance sufficiently good up the scale, so up to an A or certainly a very good B1, people didn't heat their homes enough and people were not warm. because it was still too expensive. We did not go far enough with a 45% renovation. So we decided when we were putting together super homes, the thing that we didn't do well in Serve, which is a standard Irish renovation, we'll call it right now, we didn't do renewables, we didn't do air tightness, we didn't improve the ventilation and internal air quality, and we didn't do solar PV. And back in 2008, nobody did solar PV. There was 300 kilowatts of solar PV installed in Ireland in 2014 before we did a big project. But you know, we were at a position, and particularly as well with heat pumps, there was very few going in. There was none going into retrofit, and we decided that this was not good enough. And that's where super homes came from, to try and improve the technical understanding of what we need to do with our homes. So I didn't set out in 2015 to build a retrofit business. I didn't, but I have found myself in 2018 with a retrofit business with several million turnover almost at this stage. So we've done about 75 super homes. What is it? It's a process where a homeowner comes to us. We give them impartial advice. We list all of the measures that they could do on their homes, and we say, if you want to proceed with super homes, these are the minimum measures. We will not help you unless you go this far. And the reason we do that is to make sure that people are happy at the end of it. Because we know, and we've retrofitted enough buildings, to say that if you just tickle around the edges, you don't actually achieve a particularly good performance. So we make it mandatory that people go renewables, we make it mandatory that people do air tightness, and we make it mandatory that people put a ventilation system in to improve the air quality in the homes. Ireland has a particular problem with very poor indoor air quality. There's a lot of mould in Irish homes. We have the highest rates of asthma in the world, and we have a big problem with indoor air quality. So that's why when we did Serve, we noticed that as you insulated and improved buildings, that we ended up with poor ventilation. And as you go around Europe, you see that most homes have ventilation systems and Irish homes don't have ventilation systems. It was pretty easy to identify the challenge there. We spend a lot of time on training contractors, a lot of time on quality control, sometimes not enough, and I won't say we're perfect. We support with finance in terms of grants. We have had a financial package that not very many people use because it wasn't very good. And we are working hard to get a new financial package, so that's our key task for this year. We have a research project that's going in parallel, that they're doing all the technical research. So we have installed heat meters and electricity meters in every home on every heat pump, and we are monitoring the effectiveness and the performance and how do we improve, and going out and recommissioning and checking and improving and improving and improving, and feeding that back into our design. So it's a very technical led. It's like a pile of engineers trying to make this work, which can be challenging. And we obviously have the European Investment Bank to help us do all of this work. So homeowners give us some money, the state gives us some money, and the European Investment Bank gives us some money to try and make it work. So in terms of where we put this together, a lot of people in the room here will know quite clearly the barriers to deep renovation, what to do, how to afford it, how do I get the right contractor, is it good value for money, who will make sure it's done correctly, and all of that sort of stuff is very important. And after presenting super homes to one of our senior officials in energy efficiency, they walked out of the second or third home and they said, how on earth are we going to get every homeowner in Ireland to do this type of renovation without an offering like this? And it's clear that the one-stop shop that has very quickly become a European buzzword, we'll say, over the last 6 or 8 months, it's absolutely the right thing from where I sit, having renovated literally thousands of houses. So I have a couple of survey slides. So when someone applies to us, we ask them a pile of questions. We've got one of our universities to put together the questions so that they were right. And I just thought it might be worth sharing those with the people in the room here. You don't need a lot of discussion on this. Why do people want to do it? One thing what I thought was very surprising was the number of people that listed environment as one of the key drivers. I was very surprised to see that so high. Honestly, I was very surprised, but it is a driver and is a key driver. And we often get emails saying, I was delighted to see that oil tank going out, because a lot of Irish homes are heated with oil, going out the driveway. So it is a driver. It is clearly not the only driver, and I think comfort and cost are the two that really come up. But when you talk about deep retrofit, where the internal rate of return might be 2 or 3%, or if it's a very old building, might be -1%, it is not going to be the only driver. And it's important, if anyone gets into the space, it's important to understand that that is not going to be the only driver. It's not just money. And I think that is very important to say. Why people don't do it, so the opposite question, the cost of the works is obviously one of the biggest challenges. It is very expensive. And we are talking somewhere between 33 and 40,000 euros on average. The first year was 28 because a lot of works had been done. They were early adopters. But as we get into the more comprehensive retrofits, we regularly see 50,000 and 55,000 retrofits. The second big barrier there you see is how. And that's what the one-stop shop has to do. And I don't know how many presentations I've seen from different people in the finance industry over the last 2 days. Repeatedly, over and over and over again, it is not just the financial solution. Because the financial solution is only available after you've got the whole way to it. So that's very important. How do people finance it? So one of the things that I think is quite interesting, some people want full financing. Some people want no financing, they've got their own resources, and about a third want a little bit of help. So whatever packages we need to come to, some of these are secured loans, where you're talking about a generational renovation of a home, and you're pulling out walls and windows and, extensive renovation. Some people are less, and there are a number of financial packages we think are going to be needed to address the renovation challenge we have. What do people want out of financial packages? So we ask them, we let them put their own words, and we try to attribute them. The Green Deal was the third bar in, that the loans would equal the savings, which obviously didn't succeed very, very well, I think would be nice to say. But if you look at that, what do people want out of a financial package? The one thing that you could safely say the Green Deal didn't have was low-cost finance, and the second thing it didn't really have, or the second thing it did have was this. And I think it's really important to say that we need to provide value for money in the financial package, and we need to figure out how to do that. And if the default rates are, as in Picardy, 0 or very, very, very low, we should not be talking about 7 or 8 or 9 or 10%. So I think it's important to kind of really address that if we're offering financial packages and the financial packages are uncompetitive. Okay, next question is acceptable payback. So cumulative acceptable payback. Everyone would be very happy with less than or equivalent to 5 years. But what we really see when we send out reports, if the effectively simple payback, for want of a word, is over 10 years, we start to get a very high drop-off rate. And when you start to get to 15 years, even with all the other benefits, we really get a very low turnover. Now, this is their opinion in advance, but this is very, very much borne through in terms of the number of people that drop out. And, I want to be comfortable, but I really just can't justify a simple payback of 15 years is a term you'd hear. So carbon tax is the one lever that pushes all of that in the right direction. That would be much more cost effective than lots of grants. So what super homes we're very much clear now that we need to build a one-stop shop, and we are well on the way. We have a one-stop shop. We don't have some of the things in terms of finance. So for us to bring along a financial package, we spent a lot of time with different financial institutions in Ireland, and we understood at the beginning of the project that we weren't credible. So back in 2015, we were 10 or 50, we were maybe 500,000 investment per annum. We weren't credible. And for us, for our one-stop shop to be credible, for a financial institution to get involved with us, we need to be credible. And that's where Elena obviously is hugely important, because it allows us build the demonstrated technical implementation. We now have a reasonably good brand awareness. Most of the energy efficiency people in Ireland know what Superhomes is, and a lot of them have applied, which is great. A lot of the environmentally aware people in Ireland have applied, and a lot of, we've a lot of those sort of people thinking about doing this. It takes time to develop a business model, and it in particular takes time to develop a business model where the only copies you can see are the likes of a small one in a region in France and a small one here and a small one there, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to change the way contractors work. It's hard to change the way the government programs work, and there's new government programs have been developed as a result of this. There's no doubt that if you go into this process of deep renovation when no one has been deep renovating homes, you're going to make mistakes, and it's important to make mistakes with 3 homes or 5 homes or 7 homes at the beginning and not 100 homes. And I think the other thing I think is important, the development of one-stop shops. So we're not funded by the state. We've no standard state funding. So we have to charge homeowners for some of the costs. And I think it's very important to say, as Europeans, that we can't have the early adopters funding the development time. So that's why Elena is so important, because it allows us to develop. And the obligation scheme is the other side that no more than in, I think was mentioned in the other program. The obligation scheme are kind of the 2 main funds of our 7 engineers, because engineers have salaries and they need to be paid and all that sort of stuff. So Elena allows time for that scale, time for innovation. Just in terms of our own Elena, I was asked to just cover a little bit. We made initial contact on the 24th of November in 2016. We submitted our 1 page there. We made our application a month later. We fine-tuned it over February to June, and it was a very good process because it allowed us, we were asked the hard questions: who's going to do it, when they're going to do it, how are they going to be funded, how are you going to make this work, and essentially a detailed business plan. And we had it signed and started on the 1st of August. So it's a very quick process. If you know your market and know who the investors are and what the projects are, and the savings. So we had some savings in public lighting, we had some savings in homes. They were all things we did and knew and had lots of reports already written. You just need to make sure that you understand exactly how the project is going to work. And I will say it was very easy to work with the EIB folks, because they kept asking the questions in the way that helped us understand and develop it into a really good program. And as I said, my friends in France said, don't start, Elena, when you're standing still. Start it when you've started to move, because 3 years isn't a very long time. I wrote a blog. I was asked by one of our National Energy Agency officials to write a blog so that other people could see how good Elena is and how useful it is. Because the more money that goes from Elena into local and regional actors in trying to develop projects, the more sustainable energy action that happens on the ground. And it's a brilliant program from that point of view. And I'm not just saying that because Reinhardt is in the room. It genuinely is a very good program. Buy me that beer later.
He didn't get paid for this.
You can buy me that beer later. So just a little bit on results for the first 75 homes. So the red dot is the pre-assessment. So this is on our kilowatt hours per metre squared per annum energy performance certificate scale. So we call it building energy rating, or BER scale. And you can see the before and after. It's very much a clustering around. And when you've got small homes that are detached, small rural detached homes, it's very hard to get the ratio of building volume to floor area is worse than a bigger home. So you essentially, even with the same measures, you might be here with the smaller house and here with the bigger house. So it's, the difference you might ask between this one and this one, this one might might be 50 or 60 square meters, and this one might be 300 square meters, but they might be the same measures. And some people would pay extra and put some solar photovoltaics on. I think about 50 or 60% of the homes would include solar PV. It's an option. We suggest they do it, but they don't have to. Every one of those homes has a heat pump, and every one of those homes has a heat meter on the heat pump and electricity meter on the heat pump, and we'll be able to do very detailed evaluations on those. But look, I think the graph just jumps out for itself. These are all gone in terms of, like some of these homes, if you look at where they are at 700 or 800, these were freezing cold homes. These were homes that were unlikely, if it's -3 outside, to be above 10 or 12 degrees. You know, there's quite a significant change in the way these homes are, and every one of these homes has proper ventilation and proper monitoring. So in terms of what we have on the technical scale, the average is 71% primary energy savings. We haven't evaluated all of them. The delivered energy savings on the first 2 years was about 78% on delivered, about 71% on cost, or 68% on cost, because people will invest some of the savings in comfort. But there's still an awful lot to do. You know, that's 75 homes. As our former energy minister turned around to me the other day, he said, 75 homes, I want to see 75,000 homes in 2 years, because that's where we need to be. And he's right, so we have a big challenge. It's a very small number of homes. So one question for today, we provide this graph to everyone, which is their current cost of energy with energy price inflation as it's been over the last 15 years in Ireland. It's not a net present value for anyone who did the Manage Energy course. And we present the retrofitted home graph, where this is the after grant amount that this particular homeowner spent. So they can see the two of those graphs. And it's a very powerful, very simple graph. You're not saying, no, I'm not spending 30,000 on a retrofit. You're saying, yes, I'm going to spend 50,000 on energy. So it's a very important thing to tell the story about what the finances actually mean. And I think, you know, I think it's clear, certainly from where I sit, that we're going to need to do something like this to every European building that it hasn't been done on. It may not be the same technical measures and so on, but you know, we need to move away from oil and gas. We need to move away from fossil fuels. And we need to move away from poor indoor air quality and poor insulation. It's very unlikely, from where I sit and from the homeowners we talk to, that even the ones that think they know what to do, they're a long way from being able to achieve this sort of scale of retrofit and achieve that sort of savings. And I will say, after doing 400 homes in Serve, where we specified the measures, I needed to do an awful lot of research and an awful lot of thinking and an awful lot of technical development to get to super homes. That's me after spending 10 years in retrofit. So let's be clear that we are not going to achieve this in Europe without a lot of brains into this, and without, like, the average punter is not going to engage in this. I don't see market capacity, and I don't see how the market capacity will develop, when I say the framework, without specific measures and specific market changing and market development measures. I know the government wants to see it happen. I know Europe wants to see it happen. I know the construction industry would love to see all this investment. I've no doubt that all the financiers would love to put money into this. And no one wants to live in a cold, leaky house. So there's a lot of reasons why this sort of thing should come up. We've written, I don't know how many sessions I've sat through with different sorts of graphs that say how energy efficiency people and finance people can't talk to each other and have different words and different languages and so on. And I think we just need to figure that out. And, you know, I suppose my approach over the last 3 years, since being turned down from all of our banks for any sort of financing package, has been build it first and then go try and pull the financial package together, because we have to have credibility and so on. And it's quite different. And I think one thing that's very interesting as a comparison between super homes and Picardy is Picardy was very much driven by financial experts, if I can make a statement. We brought in the technical experts, but you know, it was very much the the concept started with financial experts, and we're the complete opposite. It's, you know, a pile of retrofitting nerds in a room coming up with this. So it's quite interesting that everyone needs to get together into the centre eventually. You know, so our financial package was an unsecured standard off-the-shelf loan from a high street bank. I think less than 10% took that offer up. And talked about that. You know, I think the reason why people don't proceed is because we don't have a good financial package. The cost, they say cost of works, but it is really a question of not having the right financial package. And, you know, this is kind of the key important part. You know, you need demonstrated capability to deliver. Anyone who was here with at the last session, you know, looking at local authorities and getting involved, you know, if third-party financing is going to come in, it's going to have to come in to someone who knows how to do the technical renovation. And I think it's very important. So our work plan. We're still working on the technical offer. We're almost there, but we still have little bits and pieces to do. We are very much, I think we're very much getting to a point of saying that there is market interest. We probably have 4 to 5 homeowners a day coming to us now saying we're interested in retrofitting our homes. And we haven't even started marketing. You know, we have a website and word of mouth, and that's where we are right now. We have spent a lot of time with our department officials, with the technical people in our National Energy Agency, with environmentalists, and we've spent a lot of time going and getting them to understand what this is all about, because it is really important to bring them on board. We don't have the political stomach for carbon tax, and energy prices are cheap, so if we want to retrofit our houses, we're going to need to have some sort of subsidy. And I think, you know, we kind of feel right now that we're either going to have to partner with a bank, like something like the KFW or other, or finance projects directly with investment and aggregate investments and sell receivables on a non-recourse basis is the language that they have told me I should be using. So one of those two sort of things are how we're going to get to. And hopefully this time next year I'll have a package that I can come back and present. So that's kind of where we are. That's where we are this year. It's all about really just scaling up, getting the market right, getting all the technical stuff right, and getting a financial package right. And you know, we very much are planning to deliver 400 homes under our Elena, roughly 20 million investment. And I don't foresee that that's going to be a huge challenge. I think we would like to be at 4,000 homes if we get a financial package together. And Sinead, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. It was very, very interesting and convincing how you presented. And also, what was impressive is the time you need to prepare it. I mean, you really put a lot of efforts. 10 years, I mean, seems long. I hope not all people need so much time. But it shows that it's very well prepared. And I think this is crucial in order also to be able to deliver on the success afterwards. And understanding the market and what you can propose as technical solutions is crucial. So the floor is open now for questions. I would like to take 3 questions and then give the floor again back to. Yes, please.
Yes, you mentioned that you did 77 projects and planning for 400, and with the financing maybe a few thousand, but that's still far away from the 75,000 you mentioned. So shouldn't at that stage the private sector also step in? And therefore my question, is it realistic for, let's say, a relatively small private company to set up such as a one-stop shop service and deliver that also to homeowners? And how do they get financed? Do they have to get Elena funding or equity or what? So how realistic do you think it is for a private company to do something rather than for a public authority or an energy agency?
Okay.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. I can't decide if that's entirely inspiring or totally demoralising, because it's just so brilliant and yet so far to go. A long way to Tipperary, you could say.
Very true.
The utility companies in Austria are obligated to offer the sort of solutions that you're offering at the same time as offering a gas bill. Is anything like that emerging in Ireland?
Good question. Yeah.
Is there another question?
Yes, I have a question back to the financing. I would like to please, could you explain how you compute the return on investment and the duration? Because basically it's important to see if you take into account the whole refurbishment cost or convince people that it's extra disbursement compared with compulsory disbursements linked to the refurbishment, which is to be done in any case.
Okay. Well, I'll start. Yeah, will a kind of small non-profit public good social enterprise deliver 75,000 homes a year? No, absolutely not. I think we see ourselves right now as demonstrating what needs to be done, and that's where the first 10 homes was a technical pilot to try and figure out what needed to be done. However, as I sit here today and thinking about trying to get to thousands a year, I'm thinking we need to be in a position of having a finance package, having my staff do certification training, and understanding how to get contractors into the space, including surveyors and energy experts and so on and so forth. And I do think that we can have a significant enough impact. Now, what we are trying to do is build contractors and a contractor base, because ultimately that's 90% or 92% of the work, and it's all the private sector will be doing. It's not publicly driven, it's not. So I see our role as trying to scale that and provide demonstrated models of it, but most of the effort, most of the money are going to the private sector contractors. And what we've done to date is we've had lots of contractors in rooms. We've said if you want to get involved, you get involved, but you need to be up to a standard. You need to invest yourself to get to that technical training standard. And some have come to us and said, we're in, we're going to do it, we're going to get trained. And when they do that, they deliver, and it's fantastic. And others have come along and said, oh yeah, we're in, and they've screwed up and they're gone. They do one house, we end up spending 5 times the time managing because everything is done wrong. And we just say, look, you're not serious. If you want to be a retrofit company, get serious about it. So we're taking on a role of market development to try and achieve this because nobody else is. But I think it's important, and I've said it to the European Heat Pump Association, and so has other MEPs, that the likes of heat pumps are going to be big parts of our retrofit over the next 20 years, and the heat pump associations of Ireland and of Europe need to get involved with all the other manufacturers of all the different components that are going to go into retrofit and figure out how to get higher standards, because we do not have higher standards right now. And we can't scale up ultimately because we don't have contractors who can deliver. And if there's one real issue we have, it's contractors. Financing is a bit, but we turn down work and we say to homeowners, we don't have a contractor in your area because we don't. So I don't know whether that answers your question. Second question is, a long way to Tipperary, and are you, how are we going to get to 4,000?
It's the utilities.
The utilities.
Should they not be obligated to be offering this?
So we have, there's a big part of what we do is, if I just go right up to the beginning slide, we have our biggest utility on board, and they are spending, a certain amount of their obligation scheme on super homes, trying to demonstrate. There is no doubt about it, and we've entered into talks about finance from them. They have a 1.2 billion turnover. This is a drop of the ocean. And again, I see if we are to achieve scale, we'll have to be in partnership with the large utility, no doubt about it. And our research project is about about using heat pumps for DSM to provide lower cost for a homeowner, but also to support the network. It's about potential new tariffs on heat pumps, so a heat pump specific tariff where a homeowner who has a heat pump that is using maybe twice the kilowatt hours gets a lower rate if they use it at particular times. And all of those are the things that we're going to need to leverage the big utilities, as well as their reach and their customers and so on. But right now, I don't have the contractors to deliver, so there's no point in me asking that utility to put a fire hose of consumers into this package and advertise it, because I don't have the contractors to deliver it. So,
has that programme started? I mean, has you started with schools and you're training the 15, 16-year-olds to be in this area?
no. I'd love to say yes, but no. We have a big skills problem in Ireland.
And also, sorry for asking a second question, it almost sounds that you've done 90% of what would be required to franchise it.
Oh yeah, we're getting there. That's the only way we're going to get scale. I don't want to have 25 engineers or 50 engineers or 75 engineers going to homes all over the country. We need to be at a situation where the other local energy agencies and the other trusted intermediaries around the country, including local authorities if they decide to get on board, become partners. And therefore, the one investment and the one piece of legal framework from an investment house and the one, it's really important that all of those are done once. We don't need to relearn how to renovate a house. We've done, So I see that that's how we're going to get the big numbers. And the other question, which I'm going to try and answer my best, how do we show the finance cost of renovation for energy specifically and not all the renovation? Is that the question you were asking? Sorry? Yeah.
Sorry. It's about the way you answer to this question from people asking for the return on investment.
Okay.
Because, it's
So-
really key to you explain yourself that this idea of payback was not essential in the idea of the people, but nonetheless, they have to play with the figures. So it's important to see how you play with the figures.
As a complement, perhaps, for example, there's investment which is done in the building, so one could assume that also the value of the building or the asset is increased.
Yes.
So is this also some? How do you take this into account? Is it an argument or?
Yes. So every homeowner gets a report, and on the report, one of the things we do is we take their existing energy performance certificate and their existing energy use, and we say versus your energy certificate, you use 60% of predicted, which means you're 60% lower temperature versus the outside world. So we do then say you're likely to, your savings will be less than predicted on a standard technical because you're going to warm up. However, many people come to us as part of a renovation and they're doing other renovation works, and we really support the energy renovation works. So the financial support from the state is only for the energy renovation works, and we only use the energy renovation works for the cost analysis. Now we do include the ventilation system, which is a health renovation piece. It is going to increase your energy use in maybe a little bit, but we don't put in some of the, so if someone needs to rewire their house because the wiring is 45 years old and it's a sensible thing to do, we don't put that in. If someone wants to replumb their house because it's part of the energy renovation, we do put it in. So we do we balance those things. And in terms of calculating the internal rate of return and all those other things, some of which we present and some of which we don't, we take what we think they will use afterwards and we state the assumptions and we present that as their simple payback and they can see it. And we're reasonably conservative, so most homes will hit that number. But we also present, which is Reinhardt's question, there's a piece of research done in Ireland by a leading property economist, and it's the value of homes and the increase per BER scale or per energy performance certificate. So we present the research and then we say your home is worth X. If we don't know, we put the average Irish house, but we ask people and they give us the number. And we say if you take your BER scale, that's worth in equity terms an extra 30,000. So this renovation cost might be 25,000. if you sell your house tomorrow, you're going to make money. Because one of the biggest barriers is, if I sell my house, will my energy renovation disappear in terms of value? So we use that argument to undermine if I sell my house as an argument. It isn't enough to convince people purely on economics, but it undermines the case for no. And we also have in the past, and Stephen, who's in the room, our project manager, said we need to take that graph out, it's too complicated. We add the equity value in, and the energy costs, and the investment costs, and we come up with a very complicated graph that I think maybe I and maybe 2 or 3 other people understand, but it tries to show the value of equity investment plus the loan repayments plus everything else. And it is a little bit complicated, but it does give the, I suppose, the comfort to say that, you know, the extra costs are below the line, so it's negative, so the costs are negative over time. And we're just trying to undermine the case for no from a financial point of view. Because we use this term, the head and the heart. I use this term, the head and the heart. Every couple, one of them has the money and the other one wants the comfort. And it could be either the man or the woman, so I'm not being sexist. It's like an organization. You have the CEO and the CFO. The financial person wants to see the money, and the CEO wants to see the solar panels on the roof and know they're doing their bit. And for a homeowner, you're likely to have one person wanting comfort and the other spouse is like, whoa, that's a lot of money. You have to be able to answer the money question to say, over the next 10 or 20 years, this will cost you nothing more, but you'll get all of these other benefits. And maybe, you know, once that gets to 15, you know, 12 years plus, it gets hard. When it gets to 18 years, the head will go, no. We'll just be a little bit colder. And that's the argument we try and use. But we don't put in generational retrofit. If a wall is falling down, it has to be rebuilt. It's not an energy project. And we do get that. You know, we do get quite, and I'm sure you do in France, some of the very older homes, you know, we've seen renovations of 100 grand and the homeowner turned around afterwards and said, that's added 200 grand to my house. I don't care about the energy savings.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. I mean, unfortunately, the time is over. We have to close here, and I would like to thank you very much for the presentation, also for your interest in the exchange. All the presentations are available on the website of the Sustainable Energy, what was it called? Sustainable Energy Investment Forum, yeah. I'm always involved. So thank you very much. You will have now a coffee pause, and the next presentations, the next sessions will start at 4:15.